Welcome to Entrepreneur State of Mind. I'm your host, Dr. Dale Caldwell, and we have Thomas Clark, somebody we've had an opportunity to work with for a number of years. Thomas, thank you for coming on the show.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah. And again, I don't always know my guests' work that well, but I know your work incredibly well, and it's extraordinary. You're really, really fantastic. And so, before we talk about Lasso Creative, I always like to know your background. So, where did you grow up, and how did you get into this creative world?
Yeah, so I grew up here in Jersey, of course, in Bridgewater.
In Bridgewater, okay.
Yeah, so not too far, I guess. You know, we're kind of right in the middle of the state. Yep. But ever since I was young, I was always interested in video.
Okay.
When it's weird, like the timeline works out how, we kind of grew up with like social media kind of emerging at the same time. And so for me, that was just always an interesting opportunity to be able to upload something and then like a world of people can see it, whereas like when my parents were growing up, that was never the case. So that was kind of emerging right around the same time as my interest was growing.
In the teenage years, huh? In the teenage years?
Yeah, it was, I don't even know, I guess like when I was probably as young as like 13, 14, so yeah, early teens.
So let me, did you ever, and again, I'm showing my age, did you ever know an analog world, that you only knew the digital world?
For the most part, yeah. It started with digital, but oddly enough, I actually went back to the analog world, like, I guess, shortly after getting into it, because I was just like, I just kind of wanted to learn that a little bit.
Oh, really? Interesting.
But I started with digital, and then, but at the time, it was weird. It was that weird transition year where it was like, if you shot analog, you would get better quality. So I was like, well, if I want to try getting better quality, I'll try analog, but now it's the other way around, I guess. Digital has gotten so much.
So much. But it is interesting. Again, when you've been around a while. So my daughter, who's 18, she actually likes the record player music better than the digital music. So it's you go back and all because it's real and you hear the. So it's really interesting. So you were growing up in Bridgewater, and so did you go the college route or? Yes.
So I did decide to go to college. Technically speaking, I got a film production degree.
From where?
From DeSales University.
Okay,
It's right in like Allentown, Bethlehem area.
Yeah.
And even in like high school, I wasn't really sure what I was going to do because I was taking media production courses and stuff. I was like, okay, is this good enough, or do I need a should I go to the next level or not? And I think the other interesting thing too is like, with the emergence of YouTube and all of that, you can learn so much, without going to school. So it's a toss-up in my mind, whether
I was going to ask you, what do you think? Do you think that does the college credential in film mean anything, or is it more what can you do?
That's a very tough question. I would say like a lot of what you get from film school is a network, a great network of people that, hopefully as they start growing in the industry, you grow in the industry, and they'll tag you along for, jobs that they're doing and vice versa. It's a lot of networking, I feel like. So it's an interesting industry. I don't think it's a necessity, but I think it definitely helps in some ways or another. Whether it's worth that tuition, is up to you to decide. But yeah, I think if anything, it does help a bit and really kind of solidify, especially if you're starting from zero. I was fortunate enough, I was trying to learn as much as I can. So like when I got there, I was like, okay, I didn't learn like a earth-shattering amount of knowledge. But if you're starting from scratch, it's a great way to kind of get your feet wet and figure that all out and how things work and get your hands on like really nice equipment and things like that.
And develop a great network. And So after college, I mean, what did you do? What was the kind of your first job? And the reason I asked Tom, and I always do this to guests, because we have young people and others who are kind of figuring out, what do I want to do? And this sounds interesting. And what was his path? So what did you do right after college?
So right out of college, it took a while, but I got my first job. So it was a few months where I was like, man, I don't know what's happening here, but I think that's pretty common for people right out of school.
Absolutely.
And then a few months in, I got a job at a video production company in Bethlehem. Oddly enough, they were bought out by a marketing agency, so I continued working there. Just my main focus was video work. So while they were doing, websites, branding, etc., I was really just focused on video production for those same clients that they had.
Okay. So that must have been great training. That was really.
Oh, totally. Yeah. I mean, there's nothing better than real world like hands-on experience, and that was the best way because
theory is one thing, but actually doing it and the pressure of doing it in real time and so on is valuable.
Yeah, especially like when you're dealing with clients and money's on the line, and it's like, okay, well, how do you, what's the etiquette here? Like, what quality do you need? Like, how does that all work? And so that was definitely, a great experience. Yeah. And now I'm, kind of doing similar work where, my clients are businesses, and that was the case when I was working there. So by that point, when I was able to start my own, it was like I was just that much more comfortable interacting with, business owners and things like that, just to like figure out almost like translate what they want to do with video and help them actually do it. So
and you probably learned that a lot of people don't really know what they want. They need guidance on saying, well, no, you really don't want that. This is what you want.
Yeah, and that's, I think, kind of where that whole business side of that transition of okay, I know how to do video, but I don't know how to run a business necessarily, at least at the beginning. And as I started doing it, I was like, okay, well, I need to position myself to be that person that can say, hey, if you want to achieve this, here are some ways that you can do that with what I'm doing, which is video. But obviously for every business owner, they kind of need to act as that consultant, so to say.
Absolutely. So you're working for that company. Did you start your own right after that, or when did you, what did you do after?
Yeah, it was, while I was there, I always had kind of like a freelance side of things where I was.
That seemed to be pretty common. I talked to other folks that people always, and one of the guests was saying they actually allow a lot of their employees to do freelance stuff, and they throw them freelance work as well.
Yeah. I mean, that's to me it was a good transition into figuring out how do you do this on your own, because in those cases you are the only one doing it. So. Luckily, I had a little bit of that going on, and then unfortunately, I got laid off. So for me, it was okay, it's either I'm going to look for more work or I'm just going to start my own. And then that was really the deciding thing. And
that's when you started. So fortunately, but unfortunately, but fortunately, you were kind of pushed out. That's what it takes sometimes to get you pushed out the door.
Totally.
To get going. And that's when you started. About what year was that when you?
2018, 2019-ish.
Okay.
So
not too
really
long ago.
Not too long ago, yeah.
Because we started working together when? Not shortly after that.
It was either 2019 or 2020.
Yeah, so I didn't realize you were that new. So it's great that we were one of the early clients. And
definitely,
and then for the audience, I run the Rothman Institute of Innovation and Entrepreneurship at Fairleigh Dickinson University. And we've had for really 30 years a family business awards. And Thomas, with his company, has really done the video work for this. I mean, high quality, great stuff. He's amazing to work with. So it's just great to have him in studio. And so, all right, so you're starting your business. And so who were some of the early, how did you get clients? Or you had some clients, I think, prior.
Yeah.
But how did you really begin to get going? And this is important because a lot of people are saying, well, I want to do this. What are some of the things that I need to look for as I'm starting?
It's from my experience at least, it's there's really no formula, so to say. Of course, that's the hardest thing is when I started, I was like, okay, well, what's the formula?
What's the formula exactly?
But
what's
there
step
really
1,
isn't
2,
one. It's for me, it was okay, first family and friends, tell everybody what I'm doing, and I was able to get some work just through that word of mouth of hey, this, my buddy's starting a business, just help him out, give him a job or two to do. And so that was a great way to start and kind of get my name out there. So I was doing that, trying to build an online social media presence so that people can go there and say, okay, this is he's reputable, he's a real thing. And then I was doing a ton of networking as much as I could right off the bat because I was like, okay, I need to get in front of, business people, and how do you do that? You just got to get, go out and network and start talking to people. And for me, that was I feel a big hurdle because it was it's pretty intimidating if you've never done it before. It's, you're standing in a room of people and you're like, how do I, introduce myself, or, what do I say that, you know, will make me sound like I'm legit,
right,
you know,
and make you stand out from all the other people that are doing it. And so now, where did you start your business? In Bridgewater, or where did you start your business first?
In Bridgewater, but I was, you know, I was oddly enough doing a lot of networking with people in the northern Jersey, like Morristown area.
Okay.
I found that I was able to meet like the right people that I wanted to meet in that area, and so that's where I was getting a lot of business. I was also getting some in the Bridgewater area, but and now I feel like it's kind of all over at this point. But yeah, it was just a mix of that whole North Jersey, Central Jersey.
Did you join
area.
a Chamber of Commerce, or
yeah? Yeah, so I was at the Morris County Chamber.
Okay.
That was one of my first like bigger exposures. I mean, that it's a huge chamber of commerce, you know. So
it's a wonderful chamber, and we've been members for a while. But that's one of the messages for folks out there. You know, join your chamber. They're there so you can start to network. You can meet people. That you can let them know who you are. You know, I'm a big believer in traditional business cards. Now, people have digital business cards, and you probably should have both.
Yeah.
You really should have, because a lot of people, the trouble with digital is, the nice thing about paper is, you know, people collect those cards, they'll put them there, and then I'll pull them out. Oh, Thomas, oh yeah, let me call him. So, you know, so that's big. All right, so you joined the chamber, you started to have some of the clients. What were your primary kind of sources of business? I know video, but what other things, what's the suite of services that you provided?
So, yeah, I mean, at an early stage, we were kind of like, I was like, oh, I want to focus on anything digital, and so that could be, you know, anything from like social media, websites, and things like that. And
did you do photography too?
Photography, yeah, yeah. And so now at this point, I feel like we've strayed away from that. Really, just video and photo are like the really main two sweet spots. And I found that for me, it's just easier to like streamline my mindset. It's like if I'm figuring out how to build a website and then figuring out how to coordinate a video shoot, it's just they don't go hand in hand.
Well, and the website is so time consuming.
Yeah.
I mean, a video shoot you can do. But I laugh whenever I talk to photographers, you know, because as a kid I loved photography, and I'm a graduate from the New York Institute of Photography, and way back in the day. And I never wanted to do wedding photos, because you just think about, this is before digital. It's like if your film doesn't work, or you do now digital, you don't have that fear.
Yeah.
You know, it's like, just imagine you do a wedding and then your film's all messed up. I mean, that's like the worst nightmare.
I can only imagine. Yeah. Luckily, I haven't had to deal with that. But even I still shoot analog film, because like I said, I liked kind of going back to that, and just more of a hobby. Like that's the thing, is I'd always be so afraid to do that for a client, because like the stakes are so high, and like with film, really anything can happen. It's a lot of it's out of your control.
It's out of your. So talk to me again, for those of us that don't. So analog. So there is high quality in analog still.
Totally.
You really think that it can be, you know, provides a different effect and a different view?
Yeah, it's definitely a different look, different feel. You know, some people say you can feel a difference when you're watching it. You know, it's all subjective. So, but yeah, it's just a different medium, and I think what's happening is everybody's gotten so used to such a clean, crisp image that like when you see something kind of rough around the edge, or it's not optically perfect, it kind of gives you that feeling of like, okay, this is
real.
It's real, yeah. So I think that's
and almost like the record player. So we're going to take, Thomas, a short commercial break. We're going to come back and continue our conversation with Thomas Clark. Aloha, Joe Silva here with Kukua Technologies. I'm excited to see you on Tuesdays on Morning Coffee for our tech tips.
Let's face it, lawyers get a bad rap. I'm Erin Brucey, host of Legal Breakdown, where we dissect legal topics for the everyday viewer, with a mix of interesting guests to talk about current events and hot legal topics. Let's work together to make the law accessible and relevant to everyone. Catch us every week on RVN Television.
A stroke can be easy to detect. A loved one can't speak, perhaps they can't move. But there's another sign of a stroke that many of us can't see. It's called spatial neglect, and it can occur during or after a stroke, causing distorted visual movements. Fortunately, there's a solution by using optical prism technology during rehabilitation. If you or a loved one have experienced a stroke, ask your doctor about spatial neglect. Spatial neglect. See the whole picture at KesslerFoundation.org.
Welcome back to Entrepreneur State of Mind. Again, I'm your host, Dr. Dale Caldwell, talking to Thomas Clark. We're talking about the video photography business that he does in the industry. So what are some of for those that are out there that said, I have a wedding or I have an event or something, give me a list of some of the kinds of events that you've done over the last few years.
Yeah, so I feel like we've definitely done a lot of different types of work. So it could be anything from, like an event, which is pretty awesome, getting to see and meet everybody. We've done testimonial videos, so that's, say a business, it could be any business, I guess, but ultimately they want to show people like how their customers and clients react and how they deal with their service. So a cool one was we did that for Rowan University, actually. They did some testimonial videos for their alumni, which was cool. So we've done stuff like that, training videos, which have been interesting. So we had...
So the training, explain the training video. How...
Yeah, so those are interesting because it's more like complex like things of, let's say, we did a few installations where it's like, okay, this is how you install things, here are the tools that you need to be used, and so it's great because things like that, especially when you're working with a larger company, they can roll that out for the whole US, which is what happened in our case, where we create this one video and then people everywhere are going to watch it and say, okay, this is like by the book how you're going to install this, and there's visuals to show that. So they
train their repair people around the country. Oh wow, interesting.
So it's really cool. I mean, use of video is great in that sense where it's one thing, but it's saving everybody a lot of like time and money because it's just one thing, and then they're good to go.
And they're good to go. So have you, obviously people make a lot of money, and I think probably most money is on YouTube with the how-to, the do-it-yourself, DIY stuff. Have you done any of those kind of videos or for folks?
Not necessarily for YouTube, but it is YouTube is a great platform. There's been, there's a lot of people that, at least in the video world, have been able to get some work from that. There's, people are just creating stuff left and right nowadays. So whether it's YouTube, Instagram, TikTok even, people need new content. So it's a never-ending game of like keeping up with that whole side of things. So,
but a lot of people are doing it in an amateur way, right? So a lot of people are just kind of doing it with their phone and so on. It would seem to make sense to hire someone like you to really say, hey, we want to do a professional kind of shoot.
And I always, I'll tell people nowadays even more so is that doing things on your phone is sometimes just as good because it really shows how authentic things are. So it's it doesn't make sense to hire me necessarily for everything. And I think having that mix is important because the phone videos are going to be for a different purpose. Whereas what we're doing is gonna it's more of a longer term thing where they can use that every day. And it's not to say that you can't create a good video with your phone because you can, but more of it is what we're doing on the back end of like making that look really professional, slick, and something that they can use for longer time periods. So just having that mix of both is never a bad thing at all.
Well, good, and you're being honest about that. Have you done? So I'm actually pastor of a church in Covenant United Methodist Church in Plainfield, and so this year it's celebrating its 190th anniversary. And so yesterday was going through some of the old records and archives and the history. Have you ever done, or do you do those kinds of videos where you put together like old pictures and music and that kind of stuff?
Definitely, yeah. I mean, those are really fun videos because it is like it's telling a story.
It's historic, and there's some great stuff. But now, how long do you take for the audience? Like, if somebody said they want to do this, you know, how many weeks do you need to kind of pull that together?
It definitely,
because it's time consuming.
Yeah, there's a lot of variables there. I mean, when you're dealing with a lot of different assets like old videos, old pictures, and things like that, you know, just the most important thing is like making sure that we can have all the assets. So like, and sometimes that's half the battle, is like making sure that all of it's accessible, because if it's not, that's just going to add more time to that process. And then editing, you know, of course, will take time as well. You know, it depends on how long the videos are, but you know, that's, you know, another few weeks right there, and just editing time. So it's it definitely adds up pretty quick for sure. Yeah,
well, we may engage you, because next year is going to be the big celebration. So what about music? So how do you know, what's the story with music? How do you incorporate music into that? Do you have some non-copyrighted stuff you use? Talk to me about music.
Yeah. I mean, for me, even when I was starting out, I realized how important music is. Like, I'm a huge believer in that. I think music, good audio, of course, also makes a huge difference. But music is really what kind of helps steer the direction of the story. And picking the right music, it is very time-consuming, but I think that's really what makes a big difference nowadays. Because music is I think often overlooked, but it's such a key part of a video. So we'll use libraries that have royalty-free music, and making sure that we're not ripping anybody's music off without them knowing or anything. So yeah, having a good library is important. Then picking like the right song for the right video. And so yeah, it's definitely important, and we always tell our clients that we ensure it's like, okay, this is royalty free. You don't have to worry about people knocking on your door like, oh, use my song, you know. So it's that's always important for sure. And
so, what is the process? Say if you want to use a popular song, do you know, is it a long process, or is it you just have to pay money and use it, or?
So yeah, I don't have a ton of background knowledge on that, but from what I know, it's kind of both. You know, it is a long process. You have to get in touch with the right people that have the rights to that music, and from what I know, the budgets for those songs are usually very high. So you know, when you see those commercials with like the popular songs, it's like, wow, they spent a lot of money just to use that song for sure. And a lot of it's like a limited use too. It's like, okay, well, we're going to use from 23 seconds to 35 seconds. And they're paying just for that. Like, they don't get the full song. They just get that little window.
That little and you know, obviously TikTok is just becoming so popular. And people have used excerpts of little songs that have made them popular songs, the whole songs. And so do you use whole songs, or you mix in little excerpts of different songs, or because you become, in addition to the videographer, I mean, you're a musicographer as well. Yeah. I mean, music, like I said, is very important. And it's interesting you bring up TikTok, because I think they're kind of like flipping that whole industry upside down, because you are able to use like whatever song you want on TikTok, and there's no repercussions. It's just really? Yeah, you can use any. I mean, it's weird. That's kind of how YouTube started, and then they kind of flipped back to getting. You would get a copyright strike if you're using that. So now TikTok is kind of like, it's the Wild West. You can use whatever song you want, and that's just part of the platform. I mean, I guess I'm not sure how like the legal side of that works, but I think it's a good opportunity, because if you really want it to be used for creators and people, like, just having that freedom to use whatever you want is you know, another level. Like, in my world, it's not the case as much, but it all goes back to who owns the video and who owns these assets, and you know, I don't know if that's as important for TikTok, you know. Right, exactly. So I want to make sure before we go, what's your website? So if people want to, how do they what's your website, and is there a phone number they can call to get in touch with you? Yeah, so it's wearelasso.com. Wearelasso.com, okay. Pretty simple. And then phone number, I would say 908-304-5555. That's the easiest way to get in touch. Nice and easy phone number too. So yeah, I mean,
I try to keep the website, you know, as up to date as possible.
Right.
Have all of our best work on there, so that's a great resource. And you know, if there were any questions, I'm always, for me, I love, you know, helping people out and answer questions when it comes to that. So you know, it's even no obligation, you know, because ultimately video is. It is kind of tricky, especially if you have no background of like, okay, well, video is good, but like, how does that make me money with my business, right? It's just like figuring that out is crucial, I would say. So,
so is just you know, out of left field. So I started watching Ted Lasso. So does that help your marketing or hurt your marketing? So Lasso Communications. I don't know. Yeah, probably it's a popular name now. So
I would say if anything, it helps because there's a positive. People are usually very positive about the show, but when I came up with the name, it had no connection at all.
Well, I mean, Lasso's in the public. I mean, it's a public word. It's a very, very public word. So what's in the future? I mean, you're growing your business. Sounds like business is good. What are you thinking about? What's next?
Honestly, it's where you're at the crossroads. Like, definitely want to keep growing and seeing where things go. Keep trying to get, you know, a larger and larger scale, which is great. That's always important. And then for me personally, it's, you know, a battle of like, do I want to bring on employees? Do I want to, you know, start dealing with all of that? Because, you know, ultimately that's, you know, taking on a lot more responsibility. So right now, I work with contractors, 1099, and I kind of enjoy the flexibility of that. When we're busy, I'll bring on more people. When we're slow, I don't, you know, it's no skin off my back. I'm just going to keep chugging along. So. But
you like doing the work. I mean, I know you really you have a passion for doing the work. You don't want to sit in an office and direct other people to do your work. You want to be there hands-on. That's just who you are, which is why you're really good at what you do.
Yeah, and that's the other, you know, growing pain too, is as you get busier, there's more people involved. Keeping that standard of quality is important for me, and that's why it's, you know, it's kind of daunting when it comes to like growing. But you know, of course, I definitely want to grow and see where it takes me. You know,
see where you can go. Well, Thomas, I want to thank you so much. We're at the end of time with the show, but. Thank you for all that you've done for the Rothman Institute, and good luck. And please reach out to them if you're looking for video, and you really can do it with folks anywhere. So you're not limited geographically. So this is great. Well, thank you all for watching Entrepreneur State of Mind. We will see you next week. Have a good week.